Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 194. Tonight we are doing part 2 of our review, buy lows and breakouts from early on in the season. Fun chance to kind of look in the rearview mirror, see what some of those early calls were, the famous shows where we're like, oh, well, we got to come back to this at the end of the year. We haven't always come back at the end of the year, but this year, Steve, we got nothing better to do because we're both bounced from our home leagues. And it is a very fun process. Like we talked about last week, it's kind of memory lane on where our minds were on like April 24th show is one of these. Another one is May 1st. And those shows were titled like, is this real, or buy lows on May 1st. So it's cool to look back at these names, not only to try to learn a little bit about that process of that time, but then also to start to formulate some opinions going into the off season on some of these guys. Cause yeah, I know we're taking a week off next week, but then once we get into October, Steve, as always the case, we are looking ahead toward the new draft season. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. Good to be back chatting, man. How's life? How's it going out there?
Yeah, pretty good. Enjoying some pennant race baseball. It's a fun time, even though the fantasy season is dying down in a sense, right? It's nice that you get like that playoff push and playoff matchups. Recent, I know that there's been changes and expansion and all that, and say what you will about every single team seemingly still being alive and all that, but it's been great as far as like the races and the first few rounds of playoffs. So excited for that. But yeah, what you said on that open, I think is interesting. Like we always do pride ourselves on holding ourselves accountable. Hey, what did we do wrong in this process? Was that a correct take or not? Was our recommendation right?
Yeah, what traps
And
did we fall in?
we do a good job of it, but this year we really hit on, and with the show last week and then this week now, we really hit on like every single show that we possibly could have, as far as like, all right, our buy low shows and just analysis of certain players. So glad that we actually dedicated full shows rather than just coming up and passing if we're talking about a guy again or not. So yeah, excited about it. I know we'll do some like look backs and things like that, and still reflect on the 2025 season for a while here as we head into October. But yeah, before you know it, we'll be talking ADP and draft and digging into some winter projects in the fantasy round. Yeah, we're here all winter long. So excited for it. Excited for fall, and looking forward to putting a bow and seeing on how we did on like our actual um shows where we gave takes on guys and recommended one way or the other. So we'll see how we did.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's kind of fun to now. It would be easy to overreact to this, but it's fun to see that a couple of the show topics themselves were generally more successful than other ones. So as we get into it, maybe we can zoom out and be like, oh, maybe we need to learn from this trend next year. But sample size of one for us doing this, at least to this degree. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I to jump right in, Steve, because we got tons of names to get through. The April 24th episode, that was WAF 176, titled "Is This Real?" And this was one straight out of the gate that I feel like, and you got to remember, so this is probably 3.5 weeks into the season. You're just past kind of overreaction season. And this, by and large, we had some hits on this. So again, if you were to kind of overreact to our pluses and minuses across these topics, this is one that I think maybe next year, when we're 3 or 4 weeks in, we can be like, last year we talked about, is this real and is it too soon? But a lot of these guys were kind of success stories. So first one was Tyler Soderstrom, who, I know he was a hot name at the time, and he kind of continued it along for most of the year. As we record, a 278 batting average, 827 OPS, so 24 homers, 8 steals. I feel like it tailed off a little bit, but by and large, Soderstrom was definitely a hit. Jonathan Aranda, man, it was kind of a deep sleeper name that was rising up the draft boards late in March. And the batting average up until when he got a wrist fracture, I think it was in late July, if I got that right. But 100 games played, a 316 batting average, 12 homers to go with that average is great. So why don't we pause there right out of the gate with Soderstrom and Aranda? Just thoughts on these two guys, Steve. Maybe if you want to take us back to kind of that mid-April mentality, and then what we saw for Soderstrom all year, but then Aranda for 100 games before the unfortunate injury. But very good names for this year and probably for the future as well.
I think Soderstrom is the name that sticks out to me. That I really think there was some hesitation, I guess, maybe, right? Like he started off super hot. He was probably the inspiration, I think, for this show, right? I think he had a few homers in the first few games, and everyone was questioning what was going on. Yeah, he had 9 homers in March and April. So I think for the most part, we were pretty encouraged and thought that it was legit. And I think that was the proper take. Yeah, the power cooled off a little bit and he was nowhere near that, 9 homer per month pace. But, he still hit, 5 in July, 4 in August, and is putting together a pretty solid year. Sure, you would have thought that maybe he would have come closer to the 30 homers than he does at the 24 that he has now. And yes, the power did tail off. It was 18 homers in the first half, 6 in the second half. But I mean, he still hit 310 in the second half, right? So there's a lot to like here. I mean, by WRC plus, his second half was much better. It's a 140 WRC plus versus 119. I know that's not a fantasy stat, but he did have a higher slugging percentage, 30 more points of OVP, and hit for 40 more points of average. So it came in a different shape, maybe not one that we were expecting, but overall, if the take was buying Tyler Soderstrom after that hot start, you fared pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, what do we make of Aranda? Just because the batting average, even the XBA was above 300, and I feel like there was a split story, but honestly, he got a decent amount of at bats against lefties and hit 288 against them. So any early gut feeling on what to do with Aranda? He's a really good points league specialist with a walk rate near 10%. But is he one that you're going to be interested in the off season, or is this not really your brand of guy to chase?
No, I think it's interesting. Yeah, I mean the numbers versus Reddies are ridiculous. A 324 average, 11 homers, OPS
907.
Yeah, 907 versus righties. Yeah, he absolutely crushes righties. And that's good. It's a strong side platoon. And yeah, it's also encouraging that he isn't like an absolute zero versus lefties, and the fact that he still got 93 plate appearances means that he isn't sitting all the time versus them, right? I know they did play him a bunch during versus lefties when he was like on fire in the first few months of the season. 288 is nothing to sneeze at either, right? Like he can hold his own. Sure, there won't be much power, but the Rays can't platoon everybody. That being said, I guess a little bit of what could be my concern, more so than the splits, would be moving back to Tropicana Field, which is much more pitcher friendly. Playing outside when the wind is blowing out. Steinbrenner Field was probably one of the most hitter friendly parks in
for lefties as well.
Yeah. So maybe you could shave off a bit of his power projection. But that being said, like there's still, a good player here under the hood. A guy that barreled the ball 12.4% of the time, struck out, at a little bit higher clip than you would hope at 25%, but nothing that's, makes him absolutely unplayable in certain situations, and has a good hit tool. I mean, the 316 average is good, and that's backed up by 54% hard hit rate. So hits the ball hard. Doesn't strike out too much. Honestly, I would expect that strikeout rate maybe to come down a little bit with what
Mhm.
he's done in the past. But I'd take that trade off of a 25% strikeout rate versus what he had last year at 22% when he, didn't really barrel the ball like he did and hit the ball as hard as he did this year. So it's an intriguing profile, and I think it's someone that is going to be really popular as middle round target. Oh hey, kind of forgot about him because he missed the last few months of the season. And maybe people do have those concerns about him going back to that ballpark that's not as hitter friendly. But I think that it's not a ringing endorsement, but I think it's still pretty legit and someone that I'm gonna want on some of my teams next year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a team build guy because at first base, if you're hurting for average but good
What's
on
his?
pop,
Yeah,
um,
he's only going to be first base eligible this year. Did he
yeah,
have
so
any other
he's
positions
a
last
weird
year?
fit. I don't know that he did. But one thing that's really interesting on just the XBA and everything, number 2 amongst qualified batters in line drive rate. So that's a huge factor in that 316 batting average. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's not the stickiest of stats, right? But I mean, just looking at it, I don't know. This is very like he looks like a line drive hitter, right? Like that's kind of
yeah.
what I think of as Aranda. Like that's I feel like is his strongest tool in a sense, even though there's not much that you can kind of trust that is a skill that remains year over year, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of the names that are up there on that, like the top 15, like Quan, Bo Bichette, like those ones are
Yeah, he's not
encouraging. But
that
then
type of
there's,
profile though. Yeah.
then there's, some other names on there that aren't, fantasy assets really.
Over the last 3 years, I know this was the largest sample, but it was a 12% line drive percentage, 14%, then 26 this year. And he traded basically all of his fly ball rate remained basically exactly the same from last year. He just traded 12% of his ground balls for line drives.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet spot up. I mean, yeah, he'll be kind of a polarizing one, but I think if you've got and probably more of a corner than a starting first baseman,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
definitely
definitely,
one that
definitely.
could lift up batting average and then, be a contributor, if nothing else, in power. But to your point, Steve, it's maybe more like 15 to 20 is the hope. But yeah, interesting player there, 27-year-old Jonathan
Some
Aranda.
some some question. I think talking that through, there's more question marks for me than I would like. The fact that he potentially
I
could be platoonable, the line drive rate, going to a less hitter friendly ballpark. Um,
I don't know. I think I'm a little bit more in just because
okay,
going into the year, I was excited about him. Like last year, he had a 16% barrel rate. So like it's not like he completely came out of nowhere. Like he was a name people were excited about in general. Now, granted, that was with like a 350 ADP, so he wasn't like a wide awake sleeper or anything. But I think he did take a big step forward. So yeah, I might have some shares, but I hear you. There's definitely question marks. He's not like a top 120 pick or anything like that. Shifting over to another first baseman, this is a reminder of how they were kind of sprouting up from the ground early on. But Ben Rice was also in the Is This Real show, and I mean, it's another lefty, short porch in right field situation. And what do we think on Rice? Because season line now 249 average, 815 OPS, 23 homers. But he had 7 of those in April. So it's kind of been up and down for Rice, but he has put together at least a couple promising months. I mean, August was 6 homers and a 905 OPS. Power's kind of slowed down in September, but still hitting the ball well. So, I mean, you got to say Ben Rice was a good call, and man, he's a StatCast darling. So, probably a notch above Aranda in terms of where he's going to be going next year. But talk to me about Ben Rice and this one.
I like Ben Rice more than Tyler Soderstrom next year.
Okay.
I don't know how hot of a take that is, but I want Ben Rice as my catcher in like every single league. I think this was a real win for this show, right? Like there was, he's on another show as like a buy low candidate, but there was points throughout the season where he was well below 250. There wasn't that many homers after that hot start, right? And he sort of hovered around the 10 mark for a while. And
That's
moved
right.
up. He's got an 813 OPS and 23 homers. And honestly, like the numbers say there should be much more there. He plays basically every day now, right? Yeah, I mean he bats a little bit lower versus lefties, but he catches now. Versus righties, he's up in the lineup. I want all of the Ben Rice shares next year. Like this year looks good, like 23 homers, above 800 OPS, but there's a 297 XBA, a 572 X slug. He barrels the ball at an elite rate. He hits the ball as hard as anybody, and he doesn't really swing and miss. This is my favorite kind of profile. And he played 30 games at catcher, so he's going to be catcher everywhere. NFBC, whatever league you play in, he's going to be catcher eligible. I honestly, like the only way that I'm not going to have him if he's like priced out and like being drafted in like the top 70, which maybe he could, right?
He could, he didn't have catcher eligibility this year, did he?
No, he got it like throughout the year. Yeah.
Okay.
Like looking at the player rater real quick, like, okay. What catchers are going to go ahead of him? Obviously Raleigh. Let me filter for just positions. Hunter Goodman or Ben Rice?
Ben Rice.
Really? Okay. He's the second rated catcher. William Contreras or Ben Rice?
Let's see. Contreras.
It's been a pretty down year. He's been a lot better recently. There's that like finger injury, right? That Murphy said he was just going to have to deal with all year, and clearly dealt with it. He was the number one catcher as far as ADP last year.
Yeah, I'm looking. I mean, Langoliers is up there too. Contreras is tough. Yeah, man, I did not realize Goodman was at 30 homers.
Yeah. And Coors, yeah.
You're probably right. So Raleigh, Goodman. What do you think about? I mean, Langoliers over him.
I think I still might lean Langoliers. He's been another guy that's been absolutely on fire in the second half, and now has 29 homers last year, 30 homers this year. Like he is just as encouraging as Ben Rice. Like cut the K rate by 8%. Barrels the ball. I mean, Ben Rice barrels the ball and hits the ball harder.
Is it time to move Sal Perez down? I know he's on this show too, but like, and he's
also been amazing.
Well, he definitely he heated up at age 36 season.
Sure,
average is as low as it's been since like
2018. Yeah. Give me Ben Rice over Salvi. Yeah.
Okay, so then he'll probably be at like catcher 6
to 8. Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, if you look at, let's just game it out. Let's game it out here. That if you look at catcher 7, this will load. So this year that was Will Smith at pick 97.
Yeah.
But in front of that was Cal Raleigh. I think you might be right. I think he's probably going in like the, what do you think? 75 to 100 is my guess.
Yeah.
And he's playing every day right now. Is that right?
Yeah, basically Yankee Stadium, who knows what they do. Yeah.
I think you're right, Steve. And maybe it'll be the helium because everything looks like really, really good under the hood. So yeah, Ben Rice, that's all systems go. That's a hit. Luke Keaschall was the next one. And this one was, stunted by the injury, but 43 games for Keaschall, and the speed and average is what was exciting. And I think it was, he probably had 3 or 4 steals in the first week. Was super active, and we were all pumped up. And then gets the injury, comes back. Now 16 stolen bases over 43 games and a 313 batting average. So, maybe not if you rush out to add him, or certainly a trade, but it's still a hit. It's still a player that I'm somewhat excited about. It's just he's a specialist, right? Because you're not going to get a ton of pop. The batted ball data doesn't look great, but I don't know, kind of like a young Harrison Bader with better plate discipline and a little bit better hit tool. I don't know. What do you make of Keaschall?
I like that comp. Looks like there's tools there, good speed, good hit tool. The XBA backs it up. And I don't know, there's like non-zero power, right? He did hit 15 homers in the minors in 2024 in 100 games. So
maybe good Tommy Edman on
I like that.
the
I like
Cardinals.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good call. Like, I could see a peak season from him being 300, 15 homers, 25 steals, something like that. Which would be, I mean, that's a really, really good fantasy season. So, to do this at just 22, I as much as I waxed poetically about Ben Rice and his batted ball data and why I love that profile so much, I don't want to completely slam the door on anyone. Oh, he's got a 5% barrel rate and only hits the ball hard 32% of the time. I can't ever touch him. Like, no, that's not. You're going to miss out on some good players, and it looks like Keaschall is a good player. Like, it seems like the Twins like him, and they're encouraged by what's going on. I mean, then great in OBP leagues. Takes a walk. And has a 396 OBP in his short stint so far this year in his 187 plate appearances. So this is a profile that definitely can play, and I don't want to just shut myself out to just because he doesn't have elite quality of contact. There's other things that he does really well.
Okay, that's a segue to Noelvi Marte, who is another one. This was I broke the budget on Fab for Marte, Steve, and it did not pan out as I was hoping it did. But he's another one, not elite batted ball skills. That said, when you look at it all together, 81 games, 13 homers, 274 batting average, and chipping in 8 steals. He's faster than you kind of give him credit for. So I know he's kind of post hype, which is weird to say at age 23, but Noelvi was pretty good, but maybe not what we were really hoping was.
What was our take on him for this show? I kind of forget.
I was all systems go, man, because then I turned around and dropped some insane amount in TGFBI and he got injured like a week later or something like that. When did he go down? It might not have been that soon, because I think he was late to get called up. Yeah, and then he had a good April, and then he had an oblique strain in May, early May. So it is a little bit. I mean, we talk about how oblique is, that's a tough one to come back from, and he did come back and have like a 5-homer August. I don't know. I mean, I think we'll see where like the valuations are, but I think it would be a little silly to move off a player we were also excited about, who's going to be 24 and shown power, speed, and average. Like, what do you think?
So like his profile is just so strange. Like, he has a pretty good barrel rate at 9.8%. That's 58th percentile, but then only a 37% hard hit rate. Like, it makes no sense. Like, it's those two usually follow pretty closely in line, but to see that big of a spread between the two is pretty odd.
It is.
I don't know. I think I'm leaning sort of out. I don't know if I've seen him do anything really, really well that's got me excited. As it's like, pretty good as this season's been. there's nothing for me to sort of hang my hat on to say, oh wow, this is something that I believe in his profile. So I'm I know he's just 23 years old and was a really big prospect and had some super impressive years in the minors, especially considering how young he is, right? A lot of these guys aren't promoted yet at his age or are just making it through, if you think about like from the college end.
Mhm.
But plate discipline isn't great. Like,
I
doesn't really
think
take a walk. Like the barrel rate is fine, but he only hits the ball hard 37% of the time. Like he does have the max EV that's
I was
really
just
good,
about
but
to say max EV is something to point to.
yeah,
Just the raw power speed, I guess, is what you're looking at.
yeah.
His
I
K
just I
rate
guess it
improved a
hasn't
lot.
really translated into game speed and power yet, right? Just I mean, and the 8 steals in 80 games is good and that's fine, but I would want a little bit more, and I'm generally finding it hard to find something to get excited about with
Mhm.
Noelvi Marte.
Okay. Okay. Two quick pitching misses from this show. So the overall, the is this real 3 weeks into the season? The hitters were pretty good, if not
Yeah,
good. And
I,
then
I would definitely give us a thumbs up for those for most of those. Like the worst was probably Marte, and it wasn't that bad.
no, no, not at all. And then just to hit the a couple of pitchers real quick that were misses: Matthew Liberatore and Jake Irvin. I think we were flip flopped on these misses, Steve. That you were a little more interested in Liberatore.
Yeah,
I was kind of throwing my hands up and saying, the Cardinals always get in their own way, and they have problems developing pitching. And then we kind of rounded out and said, well, maybe he's going to offer a little bit higher floor on run prevention, and the K's won't really be there. And other than that good April, May, he faded into, unrosterable territory, or at the best a streamer. And then I, on the other hand, was like, well, what about Jake Irvin, who's got the 7'1" extension? If he can get a swing and miss pitch there, and Irvin has just been terrible. So I was laughing at one of us put a note in on extension caution story for Jake Irvin. Noted, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, for me on a guy like that, it's like I'll just keep an eye out if he's worked on a new slider and it's getting results in spring training, because I still am intrigued by extension and a fastball that's, whatever it is, 93, because it plays up so much. But yeah, those were a couple misses. Not sure if you wanted to add anything on either of those before we take a quick break here.
no, I mean I don't know. Like I feel like I usually pride ourselves and feel like we identify pitching, especially in season, as well as anybody. But this year, especially this show, and then the buy low pitchers that we'll get to, kind of some mostly misses, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, Liberatore and Irvin, like if you would have told me this, just blindly dropped me in from February to May or whatever when we did this show, mid-April, and just gave me those two names, I would have just rejected you right away, right? Like
straight
I would
away.
have, and maybe that's a bit of a lesson learned. Like stick to your instincts unless there's really really something that's changing or going on that you could believe in. Although a few of the later guys I would say were right, from this show, episode 176, just ran into some injury luck and shortened seasons, things like that.
For sure. And the show topic was, is this real? So
Yeah.
we were, we had to talk about some of these, but
Yeah.
we'll get to a few others. Then we got Buy Lows, which was about 2 weeks after that show, but we're going to take our first ad break. We'll be right back after this. Okay, so Steve, Landen Roupp was another one on Is This Real? And I know I was rostering him. I think it was the name
I was
you had
there, yeah.
thrown out at the
Yeah.
end of spring training, and it did look promising. Just I believe he developed a new pitch coming into the season. Like, was it a sinker? And there was some buzz around the industry and some good swing and miss outings early on, but just couldn't keep runs off the board. And that kind of turned into the story of Roupp all year, that like you looked at the 3.80 ERA and you're like, that's not bad, but a 1.48 whip is just awful.
Killer. Yeah.
And then he ended up, having a rough summer with a right elbow and a left knee injury. So yeah, I mean, pitchers come in and out of kind of the fantasy relevance, and I'm not sure I'm ready to like write off Roupp if we see a bit of a trend. Like the K rate was pretty good, and yeah, that like he had some luck with the ERA. I feel like it's a good organization to develop pitching, but just not really the best call. What do you think on Roupp? Are you moving on for good, or you still think there might be something there?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely ups and downs. There were some really good outings, some bad ones, and then like there was a lot of starts where it was like 5 innings, zero runs, 5 Ks, 4 walks, 4 hits, right? So like the whip was horrible, everything else was okay. That was like kind of like a microcosm line for Roupp this year. I could see why we were excited. There was amazing K rates all throughout the minors. There was that encouraging stretch down the back half of that down the last few months of last season that
That's right.
made me have mark him as sort of a sleeper and someone that I wanted on teams. I think he was probably one of my more rostered players, honestly, this year. That being said, it seems like maybe this is like a Brian Bayo type of thing where like there's really impressive K rates in the minors, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the majors. The walks are a little high. So, if he isn't flirting with 25, 27% strikeout rate, which is kind of what I was hoping for and maybe could see as like an 80th percentile outcome for him this year, the upside gets limited pretty quickly, and the downside is also pretty low, right? Like based on the ERA indicators, like he was pretty lucky. Like there's definitely there's definitely an alternate universe where he has an ERA that starts with a 4.8 this year rather than a 3.8. Especially considering that 158 whip. But still definitely a watch list guy, but not the season that I had hoped for Roupp.
Yeah, a pretty good curveball, but there's not a ton to point to. So
Yeah, the curveball is a beautiful pitch. It's you can definitely easily fall in love with it.
Yeah, and an interesting floor with the ground ball, but I guess that's the sinker, and I guess that's also a pitch that is giving up a 351 batting average. So it's like, what good is the ground ball rate if they're all hits? So okay, so that's Roupp. Kris Bubic, man, you just kind of feel for the guy that Tommy John. Then he comes back. It looked like it was just this. How did we miss on Bubic? Like he put in 2 months of, I think it was like a sub-2 ERA, and the whip to match, some good strikeout numbers. Like I know I was really excited about Bubic because before TJ, it looked like he was turning a corner too. And then I've had a hard time figuring out how the wheels came off. Like I think his command started getting a little bit shakier with like with the amount of walks and everything, but really he obviously ended up missing the rest of the season with the torn rotator cuff. Terrible luck, but I don't know if he was pitching through that or what, but it definitely was a tale of two seasons for Bubic, where he had those first 10, 11 starts that were really good, and then he turned into pretty much just a Toby with like a 4+ ERA and another ugly whip. So I don't know what to make of Bubic overall, big picture. Age 28, there's a lot to like about the pitcher and the profile, but and also I don't know what the the injury outlook is going to be for Bubic. But what do you think on Kris Bubic next year?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that when he's healthy, he is a really, really good pitcher. He was healthy in March, April, and May. He had a 2.25 ERA in 36 innings in April. He had a .56 ERA in 32 innings in May. Got hurt in June, and the ERA was above 4 the rest of the way. So I think that. And like even in June when he did have the 4.23 ERA, he still had 31 strikeouts and only 9 walks in the 27 innings. So like there was still, a good underlying number supporting that, despite that, and some regression going on just because he gave up the 13 earned runs in the month, which was 2 more than he had given up in the prior 2 months. And then July, yeah, I think he was definitely injured and clearly. Ran out of gas. So I think it's just a matter of, okay, can Kris Bubic stay healthy for, 25 starts or so and, be effective around, I don't know, a phantom IL stint or an IL stint and still be effective in August and September, because we really haven't seen it from him as a starter. When healthy, I think the skills are legit, even though it did take a long time for him to sort of get to this point and is a late bloomer as far as like a breakout ace, which is what he looked like he was on his way to being, at least through May. So, maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic, but there is still a big question mark around health, especially considering he had Tommy John. Shoulder is even more concerning than Tommy John in some ways too, right? Like, you may not be able to come back from that at all and be close to the pitcher that you were. So we'll see. It's interesting. I was a fan of Kris Bubic. I enjoyed him. I rostered him in a lot of places to start the year. But we'll see. I think that when healthy, he is pretty legit. But that is a pretty big when healthy asterisk.
Yeah, maybe one of the biggest shocks of the season was that Max Meyer did not take this ascent to acedom that we thought he was gonna. It was let's find the actual game where he had 14 strikeouts against the Reds. So that was April 21st,
right? Yeah,
that was it. And then after that, it was 5 earned runs, 5 earned runs, 5 earned runs, and 3 earned runs. Still, you look at the like, obviously the ERA and the WHIP completely ballooned, but I look at this guy and I'm like, okay, it was 5 bad starts, and he still is a guy that has all the makings, right? When you look at a 95 mile per hour fastball is enough to get it over the line. And the slider is just such a good pitch that for a guy who's 26 and like comes with a huge prospect pedigree, he was dealing with the left hip impingement that like multiple times. So I'm not saying I'm like giving him a free pass and drafting him at the excitement level we were at late April. But if he slips too far, I feel like these are the types of guys that are worth going after because they show, and then you add a ground ball rate with that. I just think this could be a sleeper that a lot of people are like, oh no, he was a bum after that good start. It's like, no, he's shown he can be at the very highest level. So I'm interested still in Max Meyer, but it was definitely one that went the wrong way.
I think he was even saying he was pitching through that hip injury that he had, right?
I think so. Cause yeah.
So even more so than Bubic is, maybe that's all can be explained away by injury. But yeah, there's a lot of encouraging stuff with Meyer, right? Like he added the sinker and the sweeper to go along with that elite slider. The fastball is good from the left side, velocity wise, even though it doesn't seem elite compared to all fastballs. 95 from left side is very good. Or sorry, he's a righty, excuse me. But still, there's a lot to like here. there was a reason why like guys like Lance Brostowski was writing about him all winter long, right? The sweeper, though it wasn't as amazing as we could have hoped for, it was still, a pretty good pitch overall. At least one that is one that he just added for the first time as like his fifth pitch. The sinker was another wrinkle to sort of play off that fastball, because the fastball is hittable in a vacuum. We talk about all the time how having another hard pitch is a way to sort of mitigate poor fastball shape and fastballs that, despite good velocity, get bad results. So, there was a lot to like under the hood, despite that amazing start and that amazing start where he struck out 14 guys, right? And looked like he was on his way to a full blown breakout. That being said, like I'm excited to see if he has like a normal off season, starts to see some information about him at a pitching lab or something like that, or getting some velocity numbers as we see in spring, because he'll very easily sneak back onto my sleeper list and late round target for pitchers with Max Meyer.
Yeah, it's interesting that the velocity did not dip down over those months, but his swing and miss numbers, like the slider in April had a 50% whiff rate, and then in May dropped all the way to 30.
What was the velocity on the slider specifically?
Let me get that here. So the slider was, 80, pretty much 90. Okay, and I mean in June it lost a half a tick.
Okay,
but I was even looking at like spin rate.
How many starts was it even in June for him?
Yeah, but even like the
one,
the induced vertical break, some of that stuff looked the same. So I wonder if the hip issue was more about like location.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got to be the case, because how else, other than like tipping pitches, would your slider go from?
I'm trying to bring up like I know they do Stuff Plus by game log, and I'm trying to get that.
I would feel way better if like some of those things were married up with.
So this is super interesting. He had a location plus score. His lowest one through April 20 through April 21st, that 4 strikeout game, was 108. After that Seattle start, it was 87.
Wow.
98, 99. In the Tampa game and Chicago game, it went back up, which was in the middle of May, to 115, 125, and then dropped down to 95 and 101 in the last 2 starts of the year for him. And there was a decent decline in stuff, basically trended down, other than that Tampa game where it jumped up and was in like the mid to low 90s the rest of the way after the start of the season. So there was definitely a degradation of stuff and location, even though it may not have been manifested in velocity. It was pretty clear that he was laboring through that hip injury.
So if you give him, that becomes he's going to have a massive difference on like min pick, max pick, because if you buy even something close to April, he was on pace to be probably a top 20.
Such a small sample. Maybe it's worth it in like draft and holds in November and December before we even know anything, before we even have any news. It's a risk, like, right? He may not be able to come, like, we have no news. Like, who knows how long the surgery is going to take to come back from. Like, he may not pitch next year with a hip injury like that. But you also may get like a pretty high upside guy, essentially, with like one of your last picks, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Meyer. I think that's it. That's a good pause spot, because after this we're getting to buy lows, which was a later show. We're going to take our second ad break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, we'll kind of start to group some of these. Did you end up grouping these show numbers as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is multiple shows, names that we talked about, but buy lows. This was still May 1 on the buy lows. And we talked about Sal Perez, who at the time of the show only had 2 homers and was hitting below the Mendoza line. And we did say, hold on. It took a while for the power to tick up. And I think they all kind of came in bunches for Sal. I think it was like a huge August or something where he had a ton of homers. So good for kind of a best baller if you could stick it out. But I mean, he's going to have another 30 homer year. So I guess until the wheels come off, like his ADP will drop much more now that he's not like a 260 hitter. So, now you'll be able to get Sal, well after pick 100. And do we think he's going to hold on to that 30 homer type of pop?
I mean, 25 at least. I feel like, and I think our analysis was pretty spot on. It's like, all right, yeah, he's probably gonna not hit for the average, and I think our analysis was like, yeah, he'll hit like 250 the rest of the way with a bunch of homers, and that's basically exactly what he did.
Right.
So that was a pretty good call there. There's obviously not much in OBP leagues, and even in his good years over the last few years, he didn't get that OPS above like 750 basically. I would project him for like sort of what he did from 2022 to 2023, which is mid 20s homers, 230 to 250 average now, with maybe leaning closer to 230 as he's aging. So definitely a fine back end catcher one. I mean, he still barrels the ball a bunch, and will pop a bunch of homers, and who knows, maybe if there's a binge, like he does get close to the 30 homers again. So I think Sal Perez sort of is who he is, and that's what kind of our analysis was. It's like, yeah, he's not toast just yet, and he's not. He's going to have another close to 30 homer season.
Yep. Until the barrel rate's not 15%, you got to at least chalk him up for 25 homers. Some of these other names. So we had a handful of misses here on buy lows, and Mike Trout, Dansby Swanson was fine. He's Dansby
Swanson. I would chalk that up as a win.
Yeah,
like
he had a
Dansby Swanson year. Like,
true.
All right, I don't have his page up, and tell me how close this is. Dansby Swanson's hitting 258 with 22 homers and 14 steals.
250 average, 22 homers, and 17 steals. So about as spot on as it could get. Well played. Very, very Dansby Swanson. So I guess if nothing else, regardless of his struggles, you can kind of chalk it up that he's going to be Dansby Swanson. Moving to some of these other names, though, Christian Walker, Mike Trout, we were really excited about those. Brian Reynolds was one that he was on my home league roster. I was just waiting and waiting. Is it an overreaction to try to make a bigger trend out of this, Steve? Because I feel like in past years, our buy low show around the May mark has seen better outcomes than this. Like, this was kind of a miss of a show for us this year, right?
Absolutely. Like, there's not a lot of guys that ended up being good buy lows. Basically, none of those guys.
We were big on Gunnar. We were huge on too, because some of the stuff.
I mean, Gunnar was fine. Like, definitely. I mean, I remember I was ecstatic because he fell a little bit in my home league because of that oblique injury to start the season, and I got him at the end of the first round. I'm like, oh my god! Like, I thought Gunnar was a lock for 30 plus homers, 850 plus OPS on the downside, and it is still a pretty good year. I mean, he stole 3 bases today. He's got 26 stolen bases, so that's a nice plus. But you would trade those stolen bases for another 10 to 14 homers in a heartbeat.
Yep. The batting average did pick up, and I remember on the show we were talking about how it was a strange. I forget the exact things we were saying, but it was like the launch angle had gone down and the line drives had gone up, and we were like, he'll be Gunnar no matter what. And I guess in a way I don't know who another player is like this, like maybe a early, was it Soto or Harper? But some of these guys that just their production looks different year after year,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
still are like good. And this is a good season, but it's not like a top 2 round
Yeah, the
season.
440 slug is just super disappointing, right? Like you
Mhm.
would even take the 489 that he had in 2023 when he hit 28 when he hit 28 homers.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. Maybe there was something bothering him that lingered all year that hurt that power, right? Um, but it's so hard to tell because sometimes like those spring training injuries, like oh, it was nothing, and then you got a top 5 player at pick 12. And then sometimes it's like, okay, maybe there was something that bothered him all year long. But let me look at the like underlying data.
If you're looking to if you're on a Savant,
Yeah,
toggle his, spray charts on his homers because in 2025, they were kinda clustered for the most part, like, around, more or less wall scrapers. 2024, he had a lot more deep ones.
yeah,
2023, he had some bombs, so it does make
yeah.
you stop and wonder,
I
like,
mean, and if you look the sliders, like the barrel rate's down, the hard hits down. Well, the hard hits like still good, but it's down. Like there's just a lot more ground balls. I'm assuming in his profile, not too much. A lot less fly balls this year, is the thing. But I mean, he traded it for essentially, um, the 2% in the air. He traded for like pop ups, and ground balls. So it seems like it's not much. That's a tweak.
mm,
Like what's the bat speed? The bat speed was still the bat speed was better last year. It was 96 percentile last year. It's 91st percentile this year. And with that was a much better barrel rate in 2024 at 11.2% down to a 8.8%. But he still hits the ball really hard. Like the XBA is in line. Like it seems like there's just a slight little like there's something that was just slightly off all year.
so
Um, with
here's
Gunnar.
here's something that's interesting. If you look at 2023, 24, and 25, uh, and look at his run values for, pitch type.
Hmm.
This year, he was a 7 run value against four seamers. Last year, a 2. The year before, a 0. But like breaking balls, it's a complete opposite story. So to take off run value because it's a weird stat. Uh, in 2023, his slug against sliders was 494. His slug against sliders last year was 636.
Yeah, he
And
crushed
then
off speed. Yeah,
this year his slug was 435 against sliders. So I don't know if it was like an approach change, but
he
definitely
ch-
like
he
fastballs over breaking balls.
he chased a bunch more this year. Who knows? Maybe that's just the pressure of like how disappointing the Orioles season were, and he was putting more pressure on himself, and that led to more chase in his game, and chasing those bad breaking balls rather than waiting for like the hanging ones to mash. Right.
Mhm.
Um, that being said, like I think Gunnar can very easily have another season where he establishes himself as a top 7-ish to 5 pick, right? Like,
Yeah, I'm happy
um,
with him in like certainly like the 5th round next year, but I don't
oh,
know if
you
he'll go
think I
that
don't
way.
think he'll go that. I think he'll be a second rounder at worst.
2nd?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's
Well,
he had
pull him up,
30, he
pull it
was
up,
going
pull
as
it
a
up,
top 5 player this
pull it up
year
on the player radar.
before the oh well the player rater is going to be not very kind, but he was going as like a top 5 player this year. You know, I
But
know.
this was lower than I'm just thinking a couple years back. I guess even then he was like late 3rd round.
Yeah, like after 2023 when he truly broke out in 2024, he was like a 3rd, 4th round pick. Um, even in 2022 going into it, he was like a 5th round pick. And was, that was when he just played 34 games at the major league level because he was just a top prospect that got called up for the last half of the month. Remember, like Carroll and him
Mm.
both were like really high picks relatively for how little experience they were, and they were both really big hits overall in 2023. I know Gunnar started off super slow that year, but
So Gunnar is 56th this year
on the player
of
rater. Okay.
hitters. Um, so batters and pitchers this year, because you're right, it won't be that so
No.
77th
Yeah.
overall this year. So with even with the tax, I mean, what do you think? I think he's going. I don't think he's going second round, but fifth might be overstating. Like third, fourth round.
I think he's going to go higher. I think he'll latest will be the third round.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, he was a first rounder this year. So, okay. Pitchers in this section, Steve. You wanna take this one and just we got to say it for accountability, but you can sweep it under the rug as fast as you like.
Yikes. That's just my note there. Will Warren, Ben Brown, Mike Soroka, Yuri Perez, Chad Patrick, Ryan Pepio, Brian Bayo, Shane Baz, Brandon Fott. There was, I mean, Perez was pretty good for a stretch. Pepio, pretty good.
Pepio.
Bayo was good. I would count that one probably as the biggest win, even though like we're probably pretty cool. I know we talked about him a bunch, I think a show or two ago, and we're kind of cool on him just on the outlook. But for this year, he was good. But man, I don't know. We gotta rethink our process next year. That is a big woof on all the pitchers that we recommended as buy lows.
On the buy lows, yeah, and it makes you wonder. Just I'm curious who wasn't on, like who were the best mid-season pitcher ads? Like, were they sprouting up like they usually are? And
I mean, Cade Horton comes to mind.
Man, and we talked about him and Colin Ray in that one show.
Yeah.
But it's a process. Like we're not doing anything different. We're still looking at the stuff that we should be.
And I mean, part of this is you have to look at like
deep.
You have to look at like bad pitchers that are doing poorly, right? Like you need to.
You're buying low, right?
Yeah, you're buying low. You need to. So like, let me like just pull up some like second half numbers here, for pitchers. Trevor Rogers, but I mean he barely didn't even pitch, right? So like you could, I mean, I guess he could have technically been a buy low, right? Jack Leiter. How did we not have Jack Leiter on this? We've been fans of Jack Leiter forever. And go from there. Sandy Alcantara, I would say, was probably pretty good. I'm surprised he wasn't like on an official buy low list for us. Ryan Nelson too. I know you're a big fan of him. He had a pretty good second half. So yeah, and I mean Brent Fott was. Oh no, he had a 5.55 ERA. So never mind. It's just
well, that one I remember. I said I can't go there again. So I'll try to hold on to that.
So there were some names, but we really didn't necessarily nail them.
We did have a May 22nd show that was checking in on the youngsters, and Jack Leiter was on that.
Okay.
So we can try to hold our head on that one. We also on that show we were talking Junior Caminero. That was a huge second half. But yeah, it just good to own it, good to look at it. What's this last one here was okay. So barrel rate changers was episode 180. So for this, we have Devers over Riley. Was that us calling that?
Steve? Yeah. We were just like talking about the two. The two had. We did like a April to May barrel rate changers, and like we were talking Devers after his amazing April, and then he started to cool off, and we were pretty adamant that like there were some really positive things going on in Devers' profile as far as like not only the barrel rate that was like amazing in April and came down so much, but it was still a pretty good level. But we were like encouraged by the fact that he didn't chase as much as he had in the past. And I'm curious to see if that held true. Yeah, it did. It was the best chase rate of his career. Still swung. I mean, swung a little bit less, but didn't like just completely stop swinging. And what do you know? Like Devers has a quintessential Rafael Devers season. Maybe it's a little bit low on the batting average, but 32 homers, 102 RBIs, 93 runs. Like he's a metronome player in a really, really good way, and he's really settled in San Francisco. The best walk rate of his career too.
Are we allowed to call this the first 30 homer season in San Francisco since Bonds, or does it not count?
I don't think so. Because I know they were talking about if Willy Adames can get there. He is at like Yeah, he's at 28, so he needs 2 more. Yeah, because Devers only, he's not gonna have the 30. He's not gonna have the 30 that was there. He had probably half of those in
Yep,
Boston, right?
he did. He
So
did.
over the last week and a half of the season, 2 weeks of the season, uh, Willie Adames has got to hit 2 homers to be that 30 homer guy for him.
That'd be huge. Another one that we talked about all season long, but on this show topic of the barrel rate risers was Kyle Manzardo. After having, the best 5-game sample to start the season, then he cooled off, and then all the underlying stuff still looked good. And then he really took off on the second half of the season with the 885 OPS. Unfortunately, it was the platoon situation, so you always had to just kind of shop when it was like a righty heavy situation. But 26 homers on the year now for Manzardo, 25-year-old. Let's see what he's done against lefties. Ugh. I mean, the 5
doesn't
homers
play
isn't
much,
bad, but
yeah.
a 182
Yeah.
average. Yeah. So Manzardo was good for just that utility. But was there a better one for us to hone in on, Steve, than George Springer?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I didn't add him straight after our show, and my brother did, and that just stung extra. I had
Yeah.
TJ in our league chat saying, just hyping up, is Springer legit? Talk to Steve. Cracking Norm Macdonald comments, So look at George Springer, man. 29 homers, 16 steals, a
Career
305
year.
average, and a 944 OPS.
Yeah.
Like, at age 35, what do you even make of this from Springer? Like, what do we do with him next year?
I don't know. What a man. That is not going to be fun. 60, like, in the last 2 years, he's 32 for 33 on the base paths. I mean, he's always been really good at it. And I mean, going back even further, he had 20 steals and one was caught 5 times in 2023. Like, I was in on George Springer in 2024 because I thought, like, he was 2020. Yeah, it wasn't a great OPS, and the OBP is a little bit lower than you hope. And there's some declining barrel rate and hard hit metrics, but he still can get you 20 homers and 20 steals, and he kind of did in 2024 in like the most painful way, right? With the 220 average and the 674 OPS. Like, all right, like, how much more does George Springer have in the tank? Boy, did he have a lot in the tank. And if you just cover the age column on the Fangraphs and pitcher list page, like, you believe it because it's a 15.5% barrel rate. It's a 46% hard hit rate. He only strikes out 18.6% of the time. He walks 12% of the time. He doesn't chase at all. A 24.7% chase rate. That's elite. He makes good contact. Like, yes, I am in. Like, what else is there? What else is there? He has been so good. Like, this is the best year of his career. By WRC Plus, it is the best year
It
of his
is of
career.
WRC Pro. I thought it might have been that 39 homer year, but
He had a
even
150, so that was the rabbit ball. So, like, he was 55% better. Yeah,
gotcha.
probably
Yeah.
by counting wise and player rater and taking out the league context. But I mean, hey, he also had only 6 steals that year. So, he had 45 homers plus steals that year. He's got 45 homers plus steals this year. So he might finish with more homers plus steals if he gets one more homer or steal the rest of the way.
Let me
So
toggle on over to outfield. So he is the number 4 outfielder. Is he going in like the 40s, low 50s in draft
this
season
is like
next
the opposite of Springer of Henderson, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, and maybe this is like a flaw of like just ADP and how things go. Like, there's like a limit of how far a disgraced first rounder can fall. There's a limit of how far
A
an
35-year-old.
undrafted 35-year-old George Springer can fall. Undrafted in like 12 team leagues could fall, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
there's a ceiling and a floor for both ends of those, and I don't know if that's necessarily
What did
Correct.
his underlying stuff look like in 24?
Not good.
Way
Not good.
worse.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was something there. Yeah, was it like a swing change? What did George?
Yeah, I think there was a swing change in in the off season. That does ring a bell. Like he,
Oh yeah, that's right. We talked
yeah,
about on the show that
yeah,
it was the A swing.
yeah,
Yeah, and he was quoted saying that he was focusing on basically swinging out of his shoes on better pitches
yeah.
that he can drive in
Swing,
the air, and that's when we were
swinging
talking about it.
harder
Good,
on
yeah.
before 2 strikes. Yeah. So that's pretty funny. There's a Fangraphs article on him this year. That's Meet the Old George Springer, and this was like when he like truly started to break out in July. And when did we do this episode on him? This was back in May, so we I guess
We were
saw this
ahead of
coming a little bit. Yeah,
we were ahead of it. So I mean, that to me is the interesting thing is if you look at 2023, 67th percentile whiff rate, 2024, 44th percentile whiff rate, 2025, 35th percentile whiff rate. So I like that it's like there's kind of an intentional trade-off, right? That like
yeah.
he's okay swinging and missing, but the
Hey,
bat speed.
who cares if you swing and miss at strike 1 and 2? You just don't
Exactly.
miss at strike 3.
Yeah, the bat speed jumped from 72 up to 73.6, which is a huge jump, like that, like a mile and a half at age 35. So I think I'm kind of in, Steve. What
Yeah,
are you ready to say
yeah.
that you're in on George Springer? Okay.
I am. I am.
Okay.
I
Nice.
am.
Closing it out, you want to talk about a couple of your favorites here?
Yeah, yeah, and I think you can qualify them as 2 misses in the sense that I was pretty adamant Fernando Tatis would bounce back. The barrel rate and ground ball rate just did not follow. I don't know what happened with that swing change that he implemented after like the best month of his life in April, and it looked like he was on his way to being that 40 homer hitter again. Now he's going to be lucky to get to 25. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there was some there were some encouraging changes overall to his profile, right? Like the strikeout rate is the best of his career, the walk rate is the best of his career, but I don't want a 172. I don't want Fernando Tatis to have the 172 ISO. I don't really want him to have a 216 ISO that he had last year. I want it to be closer to the 328, or at least that's what I'm dreaming on, the 295, 272 from the first few years. And maybe those days are long gone, but at least give me an ISO that starts with a 2 there.
Mhm.
And it's the worst barrel rate of his career too. The hard hit rate is still good, but and like if you look at the max EVs, like he hadn't hit a ball harder than 112.8 this year after hitting 116.7 last year. And living in 115, 113 ranges back in the day. So he wasn't. It wasn't a reason for him that if you took him in the first round, he didn't lose because of him. Like he still had a good year, 22 homers, 30 steals, 262 average doesn't kill you. But I mean, the 65 RBIs is less than you want, even though the 102 runs are nice. But I want
Mhm.
more power from Fernando Tatis, and I'm gonna hope that the ground ball rate improves and there's some more power that comes in that translates into the game, and he could pair it with the lower strikeout rate and better walk rate and have another 35-30 season that you dream on
Mhm.
with him. Riley
Riley
Greene,
Greene, yeah, it's a
yeah,
little bit harsh because the power
it's a
stayed,
harsh
but
L. It's a harsh L,
definitely
but we were hyping up as like, okay, this is like
turning a
this is
big,
like
big
a
point.
yeah, this is turning into like a potential first rounder type of guy here, and that didn't happen, and it's all because of the strikeout rate, man. Like there was slow and steady improvement, right? That's why I was so excited on it. Like it went from 28.7 to 27.4 to 26.7 up to 30.3%. And there were stretches this year, man, where he was striking out like if you look at his rolling graph strikeouts, like there were some really, really brutal stretches where you're striking out a bunch. It's like it's crazy that he still hit 265 with striking out as much as he did.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, there was a point where he had, was pacing for probably more than 40 homers. So, you can't have a disappointing 34 homer season, but there was a stretch where it looked like he was going to eclipse 40 at a point, and that didn't come to fruition. So another guy that I like. I mean, the 17.3% barrel rate is amazing, but there's still some flaws that need to be some kinks that need to be worked out.
Yeah, a 335 slug against lefties. Only
tough.
3 homers. I know lefty on lefty isn't common, but 31 homers versus righties, 3 versus lefties. But yeah, I'm with you that Greene is still exciting. It's just now that what we used to talk about with Riley, and I know you brought it up, Steve, just like a pure hitter, and it's like you can't be that with a 30% K rate. So he's gotta clean that up.
Yeah. Unless if he really wants to take that next step and become like a top 10 outfielder or so, he's gotta trim the K rate a little bit.
Still Riley Greene over George Springer slightly, or no?
It's a tough one.
It really is.
Yeah, because Riley Greene doesn't bring any speed to the table. There is that K rate, but I gotta go Riley just because of the age, and you can still project a good amount of growth where like you're hoping that Springer sort of repeats.
Just holding on.
Yeah.
I think they'll be near each other.
Yeah, I think so too. You're probably right.
Okay, so that was the recap show, folks, and we'll be taking a week off next week, but back the following week, and that might be good time, Steve, for us to look at Chalkboard.
Yeah,
and do the official final review.
Yeah,
and maybe start looking ahead. Maybe we can sneak in another topic with Chalkboard just to do the look back and look forward. So thank you guys for joining us. That's episode 194. Always fun having you guys here for the hindsight 2020 shows. But that's all we got for tonight. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys. Later.